After no contact, when he comes back to test you, it's never random. It's a calculated move, a power play. Understand this. People don't just reappear out of nowhere. They reappear because they sense a shift in control. And if you've been silent, if you've been detached, if you've been leveling up without giving him attention, he feels that energy. It burns at his ego like acid. Control, to him, is power, and your silence threatens that control. That's why he tests you when you were in contact, when you were responding, engaging, checking his stories or liking his posts. He was in control. He knew where your mind was. He knew he could trigger you, shift your mood, or get a reaction. Whether he was sweet or cruel, loving or distant, it didn't matter. He was driving the emotional dynamic, and you were riding the roller coaster. But no contact, that flips the entire narrative. No contact isn't just silence. It's rebellion. It's proof that he doesn't have you like he used to, and that, to a man who thrives on control, is a threat. So he tests you, not because he's in love, not because he wants to fix things, but because he wants to know if he still runs the show. If you'll still dance when he plays the music, he might send a subtle message, something vague like, hey, hope you're doing good. No depth, no accountability, just a bait, or maybe he watches your stories, likes an old post, or leaves a comment. These aren't innocent. These are tests, probes to see if you'll break your frame, if you'll reply, if you'll still feed the ego he's addicted to, and if you answer, game over. He knows he still owns your mind. That all the self-respect talk, the healing, the independence, it was a front. That's what he wants to confirm. He wants to reclaim the position of power without doing anything to earn it. No change, no growth, no apology. Just a test to see if the leash still fits. People confuse contact with care, but when control is the goal, care is irrelevant. He's not testing you because he's been lying in bed thinking about how much he hurt you. He's testing you because he can't stand the idea that you've moved on without needing him, that you've built peace, confidence, and direction, and none of it includes him. Control isn't about volume. It's not about yelling or aggression. It's quiet. It's psychological. It's the idea that he can say a few words and make you feel 10 emotions. It's the knowledge that he can occupy your mind space without physically being present. That's the power he's after. That's what the test is about. He's not seeking closure. He's seeking confirmation. That he still has the power to shake you, to distract you, to pull you out of your calm. Because the moment he sees he can still do that, he wins. Not by earning your trust again. Not by rebuilding the relationship, but by taking back the control he lost when you walked away without a word. In a world obsessed with attention, validation has become the most traded currency. It's more valuable than love, more addictive than any drug, and more dangerous than people admit. When he tests you after no contact, it's not because he misses your heart. It's because he craves your validation. That's the hit. That's the fix. That's the high. Understand this. Every time you respond, even with a simple hey, or a reaction to his story, you're paying him in validation. You're telling him, without using those exact words, you still matter. You still affect me. You still own space in my mind. That's what he's after. Not reconciliation. Not real intimacy. Just proof that he still exists in your emotional universe. This isn't about conversation, it's about confirmation. He wants to know that after all the silence, the distance, and the healing, you're still reachable, still touchable, still available for his ego to lean on. And once he gets that confirmation, the game resets. He doesn't need to call, explain, or fix anything. He just needs you to react. That one little crack in your armor is all he needs to slip back into control. You have to understand the dynamic of power here. When you went no contact, you stripped him of his supply. You took away the constant reassurance that he was wanted, needed, obsessed over. You removed his ability to tap into your emotions on demand. That's not just silence, it's starvation. And now, after weeks or months, he wants to see if he can still get fed, not emotionally, not spiritually, but in ego. He may play it cool. Maybe he won't even say much. A like, a follow, a how have you been? All of it is bait. He's not checking in. He's checking status, his own status. Are you still emotionally invested enough to give him attention? If yes, that's validation. If you reply with warmth, that's a jackpot. If you double text, show concern, ask questions, that's a full payday. He collects your validation like currency and cashes it in to boost his own worth. That's why he doesn't come back with apologies or accountability. That would require effort. That would mean giving something, and men who crave validation without intention aren't there to give, they're there to take. They don't want the burden of rebuilding something they broke. They want the benefit of knowing it's still theirs if they want it. That's where validation becomes a weapon. You think you're just being polite, or mature, or open-hearted. But he's reading every word, every like, every emoji as confirmation that he still matters more than your boundaries. That you haven't moved on, that even if he walked away, he can come back and expect you to answer. That's the validation he's collecting. It's the scoreboard he's watching. He's not playing for love. He's playing to win, and every response from you is another point in his favor. Weakness isn't always visible. It's not you crying, begging, or falling apart. Sometimes it's silence that's too eager to be broken. Sometimes it's the way you pause before answering, the way your energy shifts when his name pops up on your phone, that flicker of hesitation. That's blood in the water, and men who thrive off emotional dominance can smell it from miles away. After no contact, if he tests you, he's not testing for love. He's testing for weakness. He wants to know if the door is still cracked, if your boundaries were real or just a temporary performance. He wants to see if he still has that subtle control over your mind. One message, one DM, one accidental like on your post, and he watches closely. Will you react? Will you fold? Will you give him a sign that you're still wounded, still emotionally available, still his? Weakness isn't about how you feel. It's about what you show. If you respond to his test too quickly, too warmly, or with too much curiosity, it's over. You've exposed your neck, and now he knows exactly how to sink his teeth in again. He doesn't even have to say much, just a vague message, a casual check-in, something that seems innocent, but behind it is calculation. He's not saying I miss you. He's saying, let's see if I still own you. He's not looking for forgiveness. He's looking for emotional leverage, the kind of leverage he can use to pull you back in, to toy with your feelings, to remind himself that he's still a factor in your life. Because if he can trigger a reaction, he wins. It doesn't matter if the reaction is positive or negative. Attention is attention. Emotion is emotion. This is where most people fall. They confuse kindness for strength. They confuse emotional openness for maturity. But in the eyes of someone who feeds on control, kindness looks like permission. Openness looks like an invitation. They're not measuring your growth. They're hunting for cracks, and if you give them one, they'll exploit it. Because in their world, vulnerability equals opportunity, and don't think it stops at the first test. If you respond once, even slightly, he'll test again, and each time it gets more strategic. He'll act like he's changed, act like he's grown, act like he's ready for something real. But watch the patterns. If there's no accountability, if there's no consistent effort, if it's just empty words and emotional fishing, then you're not reconnecting. You're bleeding. He doesn't need you back. He needs to know he can get you back. There's a difference. One is about rebuilding something meaningful. The other is about ego preservation. And when you react, you feed that ego. You confirm that his presence, however brief or toxic, still disrupts your peace. That's the scent he's hunting for. He doesn't need a breakdown. He just needs a blink. One sign that you're not as strong as you seemed when you walked away. When he reappears after no contact, it's tempting to believe he's had a revelation. That maybe he's grown, reflected, realized what he lost. That narrative is comforting, but it's rarely true. What's more likely, he's bored, not changed, not enlightened, not transformed into a better man. Just bored, and you were once his favorite distraction. People don't change because they miss you. They change because they've confronted themselves, sat in discomfort, taken accountability, and rebuilt their character brick by brick. That process takes time, intention, and real suffering. Boredom doesn't do that. Boredom creates illusions. It makes him remember the highs, the fun, the attention, but not the damage, not the disrespect, not the chaos. And when boredom hits, the mind drifts to the easiest source of dopamine. You were his supply, his emotional outlet. The person who listened, responded, cared. And when that supply is cut off, he doesn't seek change. He seeks reconnection. Not to heal the relationship, but to feed the emptiness. Boredom is uncomfortable for someone who hasn't built peace within themselves. It forces them to look inward, but instead of doing that, he chooses the path of least resistance. He sends a text, drops a like, slides back into your DM. Don't mistake his curiosity for commitment. Don't mistake his nostalgia for maturity. Boredom creates a temporary craving, not a lasting decision. It's like someone missing a song, not the entire concert. He doesn't miss the real you, the layered, emotional, complex you. He misses the access, the energy, the ease of having someone who responded, who cared, who made him feel significant. This is why the message seems so casual. There's no depth, no accountability, no, I've been in therapy, no, I've really thought about what I did. Just, hey, how have you been? It's empty by design. It's a probe, a lazy way to scratch the itch of boredom without risking real vulnerability. He's not knocking at your door with flowers and a plan. He's flicking pebbles at your window, hoping you peek out. He might say things that sound deep. He might say he misses you, regrets things, thinks about you often, but watch the behavior. Has he changed patterns? Is he consistent? Does he bring real accountability into the conversation? Or does he just want to feel connected again, without doing the work to deserve your presence? Boredom makes people reach for what's familiar, but familiarity isn't growth. Just because he's thinking of you doesn't mean he's ready for you. And just because he misses the dynamic doesn't mean he understands the damage. Boredom doesn't make someone value what they lost. It just reminds them that they're alone, and you used to fill the silence. That silence gets loud when no one new is around to entertain him, when no one else is replying, when his ego needs a boost and you're the easiest, most familiar source. When he tests you after no contact, you're not being given a second chance at love. You're being offered a second chance at surrender. But this time, the game has changed, because now it's your turn to hold the power. And the only question that matters is, are you going to hand it back to him, or are you going to reclaim it like you should have the moment he fumbled it the first time? Reclaiming your power starts in silence. Not just the silence of no contact, but the silence of restraint, the discipline of not reacting, not explaining, not defending your decision to walk away. Power doesn't beg to be understood, it simply exists. It sets the standard. When he tests you, whether it's through a soft message or a calculated compliment, what he's really asking is, do you still need me to validate your worth? And your answer has to be in your actions, not your words. You see, he expects you to be waiting. He expects that your silence was a strategy, not a reality. He assumes you've been hoping for his return, checking your phone, replaying the past, crafting responses in your head. That's what his ego tells him, and when he tests you, he wants confirmation that he still lives in your mind rent-free. Reclaiming your power means showing him, through distance, through indifference, through peace, that he doesn't. It's not about revenge, It's not about proving a point. It's about returning to yourself, the version of you that forgot your value, who overextended, overexplained, overloved someone who gave you half of what you deserved. That version of you needed closure, needed answers, needed him to understand, but the new you, the one who's reclaiming her power, she doesn't need any of that, because when you truly know your worth, you don't chase clarity, you become it. He'll notice power shifts are felt before they're spoken. When you don't reply, when you don't flinch, when you don't fall for the test, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. He can't play the same game if you're not reacting the same way. That's when he realizes the script has changed and he's not the one holding the pen anymore. Reclaiming your power doesn't mean you hate him. It means you love yourself more. It means you finally recognize that your peace is more important than potential. That consistency matters more than chemistry. That closure is something you create, not something you wait for. You don't need a text, a call, or an apology to move forward. You just need to decide that your self-respect is non-negotiable. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear, crystal clear on what you will and won't accept, on who gets access to your energy, on how high your standards are, and how low he has to reach just to meet them again. Because the moment you stop fighting for his attention and start protecting your peace, you've already reclaimed everything he once tried to take from you without even asking. The moment you pull away, the game begins. Not the relationship, not the healing, the game. Because when someone loses control over you, they don't always accept it. They often respond with strategy, manipulation, and mind games to pull you back in. That's the part no one warns you about. You think no contact ends things. You think silence is closure, but for him it's a challenge, and the game never ends. He'll reappear when you least expect it. Not because he's changed, not because he's grown, but because the silence has become louder than your attention ever was. Your absence speaks. Your distance hits harder than your words ever did. And that shift in energy, that threatens him, so he plays, he tests. He sends that message not to reconnect, but to recapture, to reclaim a piece of the control he lost the moment you stopped answering his calls. The game is subtle. It's not always obvious. It's not grand gestures or long-winded apologies. It's calculated. It's a soft message with just enough emotion to trigger a response. A social media interaction designed to remind you he exists. A fake concern disguised as care. He's not playing for love. He's playing for leverage, for confirmation, for access. And every time you engage, he gains a little more ground. But here's the catch. The game only works if you play. And most people don't even realize they're back on the board. You respond thinking it's harmless. You entertain the message thinking maybe this time is different. You let curiosity override clarity. And just like that, you've stepped back into the emotional loop. The highs, the lows, the breadcrumbs, the confusion, it starts all over again. He's not trying to win you back. He's trying to win the upper hand. Because in his world, relationships are not about connection. They're about control, about knowing he can pull you in when he wants and push you away when he's done. And when you go silent, when you finally cut the cord, you interrupt that cycle. That's why he tests. That's why he plays. Because he needs to know he still matters, even if he no longer deserves to. It's not romantic. It's tactical. He doesn't miss your heart. He misses your attention. He misses the way you made him feel important, powerful, wanted, and when you stop feeding that, he gets desperate, not for you, but for the version of himself he saw in your eyes. That's what he wants to restore. Not the bond, but the validation. You think the game ends when you heal, when you block, when you move on, but for someone who plays to win, the scoreboard is always open. He'll keep checking. Keep testing. Keep showing up at random times just to see if you'll still play, if you still care, if he still has access, because to him, every reaction is a victory, every reply is a crack, Every emotional shift is a sign that the door, even if slightly, is still open.